Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Rethinking Culture, the podcast that shines the spotlight on leaders of businesses that people love to work for. My name is Andreas Constantinou. I'm a micromanager turned servant leader who developed a passion for workplace culture. Our latest project is the Culture Health Check, an online service that lets you measure your culture so you can manage it. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Seth Casden. Seth, I first met on LinkedIn and we connected just recently. He's the CEO and founder of Hologenics, a material science company behind CELLIANT. And CELLIANT is an infrared technology that can be used with any textiles and that miraculously improves local circulation with proven benefits in performance, recovery, and restful sleep. I own a pair of clothes for that, and it actually works. It's also proven by science. And Seth's going to tell us more about that. And in 2021, Hologenics was named in the top Inc. 5,000 of the fastest growing companies in the US for the third year in a row. And Seth also has a background in private equity. And he tells me, actually, I'm not gonna tell you the first fun fact because it's gonna spoil what's coming up, but I'm going to tell you that he's currently reliving his childhood with his 10-year-old son, including mountaineering, and he has summited two of the tallest 7 mountains in the world. So with all of that, very welcome to the Rethinking Culture podcast, Seth.
Thank you, Andreas. It's a pleasure to be here and be with your guests, and thank you for having me.
So before we start, tell us a little bit about the company because, firstly, it's a technology in textile and has proven health benefits, as far as I understand. I've been following you for a while. As I said, I've also bought a pair of clothes, and I'm really amazed that you can actually build such technology with health benefits today. So tell us a little more.
Absolutely, thank you. When I first heard about harnessing the powers of infrared, I was somewhat skeptical of how you would do that through clothing, textiles. I was familiar with and am familiar with infrared saunas, and I understand that. But the idea of harnessing that was really fascinating to me. And so what we've developed is a process to put thermoreactive or infrared emitting minerals inside textiles. And kind of a fun fact for those of you that don't know, but polyester and nylon and lycra, they start out as a liquid. And so we add these minerals in at the liquid stage. And then when the fabric, the yarn is extruded, it becomes permanent. And once you are either wearing like the shirt I have on, or you're sleeping on sheets that have CELLIANT integrated, the heat from your body is absorbed by the minerals and infrared is given back to the body. And that has a whole host of health benefits, like you mentioned. It really helps with thermal regulation, helping our body maintain optimum temperature, and helps with muscle performance, muscle recovery, and to help promote restful sleep. So we've been on this journey. As you said, we have 10 published studies, and it's been really fascinating to bring this technology to market and help so many people.
And I've read you've been on this journey for about 20 years now, right? And before that, you had 3 failed startups. So how was that journey and how did it prepare you for the 20-year journey that you're on now?
Well, as you mentioned, I started out in finance and private equity, and I quickly realized that while I have a love for numbers, I really enjoy working with small teams and having sort of passion projects. And I after a few years, really went out to figure out what that looked like. And to me, the opportunity in the business was almost kind of secondary to building that team, building that culture. One of the things I really like about learning about you and meeting you is this focus on emphasis on the people you're working with and the culture, because that to me is much more important than the widget or what you're doing as in terms of a product. because if you're not happy and you're not enjoying your environment, it's going to be hard to feel fulfilled. So I tried a few different things, and they didn't work out. And I think that really helped build my resilience and help teach me that maybe the world judges successes and failures based on outcome, but it helped me create a deeper meaning for myself of what actually success looks like. And for me, it's really following my beliefs and having that clarity and focus and passion. So by the time I got to Hologenics, it wasn't really anything I could do except jump in full both feet and just be committed to the process without looking at the short-term results, week to week, month to month, year to year. And lo and behold, it's been 20 years now.
What was the hardest part of that journey?
I think the hardest part has been, the skepticism, the doubt. If I told you I was making televisions, you'd say, okay, and you'd know what I'm doing. And when you're building a company, you already don't know if it's going to work or not. And then when you add in another layer of skepticism around what the product itself is, infrared is not visible to the naked eye. So I think dealing with a lot of skeptics was probably the most challenging part. I had a lot of friends and family telling me, not to do this, not that it's just not going to work, that people don't understand it, it's too complicated. But at the end of the day, I felt like, and it's been clear to me that once people understand the benefits and how it works, it really becomes a key and I believe necessary part of supporting our health and wellness.
So how did you defend your team against the naysayers at that time?
That's a great question, Andres. We've had some pretty forceful skeptics over the years, and some people that just aren't really looking to be reasonable. And with this technology, I think sometimes people feel insulted, like it can't be that simple, it can't do what you're saying, and it makes for a really strong reaction. So I've had some meetings where we've basically just been laughed out of the meeting or made fun of. I've had people sort of be dismissive and throw sample products back at us across the table. And it's easy to get discouraged with those kinds of interactions. And so for me, what I lean into is just the confidence that we know what we're doing. We know that it works. We've seen it. We have personal experiences using it. And it's a great lesson for not taking things in, right? You can be out in the rain getting wet, but you're not the rain. So, that's their opinion, that's their experience. And we just, I encourage my team to never take anything personally and to just move on and understand that person's not a good fit or that company's not a good fit.
So zooming out on culture, have you found your leadership style? Was it an evolution or was it a eureka moment? And how did it happen?
Well, I'm a recovering micromanager as well. And it was an evolution. I don't know that there's like one single incident, but I certainly have had the whole spectrum of trying to control everything, read every email, proof check everything, have every decision run by me, to where I am now, which is hopefully, really far on the other side of that spectrum. And, my job as a leader is to clear the path, get out of the way, make sure my team has the tools that they need, trust them. I try very hard never to veto or overrule a team decision. I think it's so important that you have the buy-in in advance. In the past, if I had a consultant or somebody I wanted to engage with, I would hire them and then be all excited and introduce them to the team. And then the team would feel left out in the decision and they wouldn't really understand why, or I didn't do a good job of articulating it. And now, if there's somebody that we want to work with, I have the leadership of the company vet that, consider alternatives. We really try and have at least one person that's a counterpoint, sort of, playing the advocate of the other side. And I think that's really served us well. And it certainly helped me lead with more grace and compassion. A lot of times in my early, career, there's a lot of confrontation. There's a lot of, yelling. There's a lot of anger because you want things done a certain way, the right way, the first time. And life is just never that clean. And so as I grew as a person, I realized that wasn't helping me or my team or just my quality of life. And so the more accepting and understanding I can be of the things I can't control, and just help direct and guide and, recalibrate where necessary, it just provides a much more rewarding experience for me and for the team. And I continue to see how I can evolve. This idea of servant leadership to me is really profound, and really, when you understand it, I think it's the only way to lead.
Do you let go of most decisions, or is there some decisions that you'd like to have a veto on, you'd like to get your hands dirty with?
There's certain decisions that I feel it's very important that I have alignment. And so I'll work with the team, whether it's like, what's the next position we're hiring, or, where are we going to allocate, how much are we going to allocate to R&D or clinical studies? And we may have some gaps when we initially discuss, and then I'll work however many rounds it takes to get, to close that gap. And then ultimately, if there's just a strong difference of opinion and we have to go in a direction that's different than what maybe somebody else is asking for, there should be, or there is, a mutual respect at that point where we've articulated each other, we've heard each other. I think so many times the conflict is not a result of the decision that was taken, but a lack of feeling that they were heard, that the person was acknowledged, that they have value in what they think. Because that is where people begin to check out. They don't care what I have to say. They're not listening to me. My opinion isn't valued. You can have decisions that are different than what somebody else might do, but still have a culture where people feel heard and valued, and they're gonna be able to follow that decision even if it's not the one that they would have made. But if you don't have that foundation, then people will just start going their own way, and you'll have high turnover at your company, and you'll be constantly trying to find someone that fits.
How would one of your employees describe the culture today? What would you say? What would you guess?
I would say that we try and have a really good work-life integration. It's not always balanced, but it's certainly integrated. We have a weekly team call, and the focus of the call is just to catch up. We don't talk about work. We ask an icebreaker. We ask a question to learn about the team, to learn about each other. We share about what we did over the weekend. We're very flexible when people need mental health days or need time off or need to be with family, for school events or life events. And I think my employees would say that they really appreciate the ability to work from home. We're pretty flexible in terms of how much time we're in the office versus when we're at home. And, I think more than anything, my team enjoys the jobs that they're doing, and they feel like they're part of something that's really incredible.
And is culture a work in progress, or have you got to where you want to get to?
I think it's a journey without a destination. There's always going to be some obstacles in the road, and you're going to have to be prepared to deal with those in a healthy, responsible way. And the experience can inform, past experience can inform how you handle those. I do think that there's a certain destination that you can reach in terms of we have great benefits. We have, paternity leave as well as maternity leave. We give a couple of weeks off around the U.S. Holiday, July 4th, and between Christmas and New Year's, in addition to everyone's vacation time. So, those sort of things, you can check the boxes and that's done and set. And then, the culture and the mindset is one that just constantly, I think, is, reborn every day. And just, you have to look at it with a fresh perspective each and every day.
Besides the company culture, what is success for you? When, like, have you got to where you think success is? Are you aspiring to get to, and where's that place?
Yeah, success has so many different definitions. One of my favorite is freedom of time and freedom to be able to invest your time in things of your choosing. And certainly I'm not at a place where I can always do that. But at the same time, I'm very grateful for the work I do have. There's also a measure of success in terms of awareness around our technology or infrared in general. I think there's a long way to go there. Bill Gates, I think, is known for saying he wants to put a computer in every home.
Mm-hmm.
We want a pair of infrared socks on every foot, so that everybody has that experience. And certainly by that measure, we have billions to go. So, for me, the day-to-day success is having a team that's engaged and excited about their work. And, there's the ups and downs and the rhythms of life. But I think for the most part, all those things taken into account, we built a very successful company.
So if we zoom out of the company and focus on you, Seth, we talked in the pre-show about this game of two truths and one lie, and I think you have two truths and one lie in no particular order, so we can get to know you a little better. So do tell us.
Sure. It's always a fun game to play. So two truths and a lie with two truths and a lie. So we'll put the lie in there somewhere, either first, middle, or last. I have never eaten meat intentionally. I was born into a vegetarian family, and I've never chosen to eat meat. Obviously, there's times where mistakes get made at restaurants, and you might have something by accident. I'm very allergic to bees, and got stung by a bee, and almost died when I was 11, and I was out on a farm and had to be rushed to a hospital, and eyes swollen shut. And I've had over 80 rounds of investments in halogenics over those 20 years.
So we did talk about this before, so I know a little bit more than our audience knows. So which is the lie?
Well, I might have given too much detail on the bee, because that obviously happened. And we have had over 80 rounds of investments in halogenics. And I actually was born into a vegetarian home, but I have tried meat of my own volition at several different times. So that's the one that's not true.
But still, you were born vegetarian. You're still 99.9% vegetarian. Okay.
Yes.
So, who was there a person actually who was influential in your early life and led you to who you became today?
Yes, when I was in high school, they offered Latin, and one of my best friend, his older brother was a few years ahead of us when we were in junior high, and he was taking Latin. And I always thought that was so ridiculous because Latin's a dead language. But we started hearing these stories about this teacher, and there was so much more. And then as I was studying for the SAT exams, you learn that so many words have a Latin root. And so I realized that there might be some value. So I signed up for this Latin class, and I ended up taking 3 years of Latin in high school. And the teacher, William Levy, was such a phenomenal influence in my life, and really mentored me in a time that I was pretty rudderless and really struggling at that age, as so many people do. And so having his wisdom and his perspective on life, a lot of the time classes would just evolve to a conversation about something new, or something we didn't know, or something going on in the world. Dr. Levy, as he was known to his students, had such a gift with language and would write unsolicited letters to people and get responses. And so he became personal friends with Eleanor Roosevelt, with T.S. Eliot, with Frank Zappa. And so he would have these stories. He met Salvador Dali. And this was from another time. He was also a Bronze Star recipient. And then as I learned more about him, I learned that he was adopted. And there's just so much wisdom that he had from his life experiences, that I stayed in contact with him, after high school, and really built up a great friendship. And it was actually with him that I tried a Scottish hare at a restaurant, because we would go out to dinner, and he was such a foodie. He was, "Come on, Seth, you need to try something new." And so I said, "Okay, Dr. Levy." But yeah, he I think of him still almost daily in one fashion or another.
And then you also mentioned to me in the pre-show about living in a country. You lived in a country where you didn't know a word of the language, and that was pretty scary, I guess, to start with, right? But I'm sure pretty impactful.
Yes, I definitely have the travel bug. I love to travel. And after I left private equity and wasn't really sure exactly what I was going to do, I moved to Argentina, just by myself, and just started from scratch. I wanted to see kind of what it was like to parachute out somewhere in a strange land where I didn't know anyone, and just kind of start over. And that process of just making sure you have somewhere to live and learning how to order food, and it really sort of simplifies everything, and you start to understand what's important in life, and I suppose more importantly, what's not important. And I think a lot of times in the culture, at least that I've grown up in Los Angeles, you see so many confrontations and so much frustration, and when you really gain an understanding and appreciation and a sense of gratitude, a lot of these sort of things look so much more trivial, and you just don't engage with them. And it really frees your mind up to just be happy. And, one of the things that I've learned is that we react to our environment, and because of some perceived slight or frustration or something's wrong. But in that reaction, we're sacrificing our peace of mind, our happiness, our tranquility. And so for me, like, I really don't want to let go of that. You have to really try hard to get me in a place where I want to sacrifice my tranquility and my happiness because of something outside of my control.
How do you distinguish between when you are avoiding conflict and when you're simply deprioritizing something that is not important to you?
That's such a great question. And I don't know that I have full mastery over that. I think one of the best indicators for me is there a fear there? Is there a fear of confrontation? Is there a fear of the answer, a fear of rejection? If I start rationalizing and I start justifying, then that's a really good indication that I need to face this. If I'm really clear that it's not a priority, or that it's not going to be a good use of my time, it's not. It's just going to lead to more frustration. Then I feel much better about saying, okay, like we can revisit this later. But I think sometimes I actually can lean into that too much, because like with my team members, sometimes they'll say, if I hear somebody say like, no, they don't want to do it, or then that's usually a sign like, okay, we need to do it. Like, that's, and that can be a little jarring for people that aren't really have a lot of practice and a lot of reps of doing that. So I try and back off if I'm hearing like this is just too much change or too much of a challenge with everything else we have going on at any given moment. But it really comes down to, I think, understanding the fear. And if it's just the fear of the interaction or the fear of the unknown, then that needs to stay a priority. And if it's more about the outcome or the objective, then I can safely kind of deprioritize that.
Was there a point in your personal leadership journey, like your personal self-awareness, which was an inflection point, which maybe was something you regretted, or something you turned back on, or something you realized that I need to change my ways?
Yeah, there's been a few different things, either things I've done or things that have happened to me. When you work in large companies, you see the culture. There can be hazing of interns, or sort of this pecking order. And, if you're new to the team, you're not supposed to talk. And, you let, and I've really tried to create something very different from that. And I've seen in myself, part of that transition from being a micromanager to servant leadership. I've hurt some people with my aggressiveness, with my sort of like, why did you do it this way? You don't know what you're doing. How then it quickly becomes a personal attack instead of just about the job performance. And so, over the course of my career, there's been employees that have moved on because of that type of style. And I've worked in environments where I was subjected to that. And then at some point it just kind of clicked, and I just took a deep breath and stepped back and said, okay, like that's not who I am. That's really just me trying to do what I think a CEO is supposed to do. And then the more I could listen and realize it's just kind of a myth. It's something from a different era. And what we really need is that personal sense of value, validation in our home, from our loved ones, our significant partners, our coworkers. And that can only come through understanding and grace and empowerment.
So now that you have a soon to be a 10-year-old son, which of these values are so important to you that you'd like to pass on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, you hope that your son or your daughter, your child is going to have these great virtues. And, one of the things that kids are so great at is showing you all your weaknesses, right? And they're such a mirror back to you. And it's been a really incredible journey. And if you're open to that self-reflection, you can have some really profound opportunities for growth. And I certainly feel in the last few years, as my son has grown, it's really taught me so much. And for him, the foundation I feel is really in truth, and whatever his relationship with truth for him is, to create empathy and compassion. You want to have a certain unconditional quality of love, I think is so important in the family unit, because you want a safe place. I grew up where it was sort of wrong for parents to be friends with their kids. That was like considered, a bar you don't cross. And then as a result of that, I wasn't comfortable sharing things I was struggling with, or if I tried to, there wasn't a safe place for that. So what I've done for my son is try and create an environment where he can come and talk to me and tell me the things he's struggling with. And there isn't going to be a cycle of shame or guilt or admonishment, but it's going to be like, okay, well, how do we want to do this next time? Or what are we going to do to make this better? And so I think that really fosters a lot of confidence and a sense of self-agency for him to make his own choices and his own decisions. And, in that same vein, I've tried to steer away from giving advice and really have more of a path of asking questions and allowing him to discover for himself what the right answer is. And, someone much smarter than me said once, whatever you do is the right thing. There is no mistakes. It's if you make that decision and it didn't work out the way that you thought or you wanted, you'll learn from that. And if it does work out, then that was, and that kind of freedom to just be yourself and to go out in the world, I think is so important. And to have a safe space for creativity to grow and thrive, and to be able to understand, where the line is, you have to go over it. So he's always cracking jokes and I'm like, okay, that one's funny. That one's not, but you have to kind of, understand where that is. So, at the end of the day, I just want him to be authentic for himself and then to honor and love that version of him.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. My vision for my role for my kids is to help them find their passions. And something I remember this today in an earlier workshop. One of the really universal values I subscribe to, and I heard this from Warren Rustand, is loving to love, loving to live, loving to learn, and loving to serve. So all ways in which, very simple ways that we can be better people for us and for others. And talking about helping others, we talked in a few instances about the culture at Hologenics. And you're very intentional about that culture now. How would you, or what would you whisper to the ear of someone who's not intentional about their culture? How would you say they need to rethink their culture?
I would probably direct them to become more self-aware of how they're spending their time. And what I learned about myself was if I'm trying to follow everything and we use that word micromanage, but it's more than just that. It's that whole mindset, and it's that I know the right way to do it, and there's really only this way to do it. And so I'd be whispering in their ear, like, your time is the most valuable resource, and if you're spending your time, yes, maybe you have a better way, but what is it that you're evaluating? Is it the wording in an email? Is it a different way of organizing the kitchen supplies? Like, is it really the best use of your time? And being open to that expression, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. I mean, I've learned that not only are there, other ways to do things, but some of those ways are better than the ways that I was doing them. And, you can't learn when you're talking, right? That saying. And, you're not going to learn new ways to do things if you're constantly trying to teach people your way. So I think the first step is just really doing a fearless inventory of how you're spending your time and what the dialogues are, and is that really serving the purpose and the vision of the company?
How or what would you like to leave us with? Could it be a good book recommendation? Could be something you watched recently? Could be some parting thoughts? What would you like to leave us with?
Well, one of the things that I've been working on very diligently, and I've seen so much value for me, and it's one of the hardest things is listening and learning how to. I saw a model basically about 3 stages of listening, and the first stage is you're almost not listening because you have your response, your rebuttal, and you're trying to wait to say what you want to say. And then there's another stage where you're at least quiet and you're sitting there. But then there's this sort of deeper active listening where you're able to block out your own thoughts and you're just actually listening to the person talking. And when I've met people that can do that, the feeling that I get of being listened to at that level, it's such an incredible gift to give someone, because there's so few of us that can actually do that. And so I've really dedicated myself. I still interrupt way too much. I'm still trying to remember. And there's nothing worse than like you get in an argument or you have a debate, and then that night you're in bed. I should have said this, and I forgot to say that, and I had all these points, and then that kind of trains you to not think and to not listen correctly because you're. And so at the end of the day, being able to really hold space for someone, I think, is such a precious gift.
And where can people find out more about you, Seth?
I'm on LinkedIn, Seth Casden, and CELLIANT, our company, CELLIANT.com, CELLIANT.com, and would love to hear from your audience and your listeners.
Seth, thank you for sharing your story and your defiant entrepreneurial journey against all odds. 20 years to take a technology to success. Actually, one of the things we didn't mention, you have a lot of brand name customers now, including Under Armour that you're wearing. But yeah, it's a very long journey, and it takes a heck of a lot of perseverance and stamina and leadership to go through that. So thank you for sharing that. And to all our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of Rethinking Culture. If you enjoyed the episode as much as I did creating it, then you can leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode. It helps me, it helps the show, and it helps everyone else learn from the culture visionaries like Seth that I host every couple of weeks. And if you prefer to watch and not just listen, then do subscribe to YouTube and you can see us live there. And finally, if you want to find out more about how you can measure your culture so you can manage it, you can go to rethinkculture.co. And as I like to say, keep on leading and creating happier and healthier workplaces for you and those around you.